Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarika lahu wa asyhadu Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah rabbil alamin, huwa alladhi ja'alna muslimin. I bet you thought this was going to be in English, didn't you? Oh, we can do that. I can translate from my native language to English. You're supposed to ask me, what was your native language? And then I say, I'm from Texas. And then you laugh. Okay, I got the audience trained. Number ready to go. My name is Yusuf. Can you say Yusuf? I got it right the first time. All these years, my wife, she still says useless. Now you laugh? I can see where this is going. Well, anyhow, you guys don't sleep up here. Man, the sun doesn't go down in the summertime. It's just like... Tell somebody I'll see you at Maghrib. What's that, in 2 months? We just came from Tromsø just a day or so ago. You know Tromsø? At this time of the year, you got 1 day from May 20th until July 20th. You just do Salah 5 times, you're finished. Alhamdulillah. It's pretty good, huh? And in the wintertime, it stays dark. You don't have to do Salah at all. No wonder so many Muslims are moving up there, huh? We went up there to do a documentary because there is a hadith about this, and I had heard this hadith when I first came into Islam, and I couldn't understand it. It sounded so weird. It says something that's going to become a day, and when you're trying to read a translation into English from Urdu, from Arabic, from I don't know what, and it's saying in here that there's going to come a day when 1 day is like 40 days or more days, a couple months, something like that. And that's 1 day, and the people were asking the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, well, then how will we take care of our salah, you know? And he told them, you go according to another place on the earth where they're having the normal time. And I'm thinking, what? How could you have 2 places on the earth at the same time? One is having 40 days, it's 1 day, and another place is, and I'm just coming out of Christianity. In those days, 1 is 3, 3 is 1, so I don't know how that works. So, and then when I met these people just about a year or so ago from Tromsø, and they were telling me, that in the summertime, the position of the sun appears as though the sun is going around the earth, and it seems as though 1 day is a couple of months. I said, well, how do you gauge how to do your salah? They said, off of the closest place that has normal times. I went, whoa. 1400 years ago, you have a prediction like this. Let's go see what it's like. So Harris and I jumped in the plane and went up there, and sure enough, it's exactly what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prophesied. Now, some of you have probably had some experience with some of the other phenomena of the prophecies from Prophet Muhammad, and realized that there's no way anybody could have made up these things 1400 years ago. Especially when you consider that he was living in the desert, and he was very illiterate. I don't know how you can be very illiterate, but he didn't read nor did he write in any language. Some people in these days try to, put it down by saying, well, he probably traveled around and he learned from different scholars and probably, and you're going, from scholars of what? How did people come up with this? You talk about embryology. This is one of the biggest subjects of all that Allah speaks about in the Quran is embryology, as far as a phenomenon that you can't really make an excuse about this. Nobody even knew 100 years ago what the egg looked like when it was being fertilized. Even under a microscope, this is something very recent science to discover that exactly the descriptions in the Quran and in the Hadith of Muhammad are what we're really seeing. When you take some of the top embryologists of the world and they have a chance to find out what Islam is saying about it, they become shocked. You know, it was 1985 when in Cairo, Egypt, they held this big conference of scientists who came there. And there was one of them, a Muslim scientist, who actually organized the whole thing and brought them together, Sheikh Zandani. How many of you heard about this before, what I'm talking about? Yeah. They've made films about it, websites today about it. There are some DVDs on this subject talking about the phenomenon that we find in the Quran and Sunnah about the development of a human being from the time of conception until they're born. And it's not just accurate, it's answered questions for some of the scientists themselves to say, how did this happen, you know? How could somebody 1,400 years ago come up with it? And there's a website, it's called Science Islam, maybe you heard about it. And it has a lot of information on there, and pictures, diagrams, but then it also has 9 videos of scientists who have had the opportunity to share and work alongside of other scientists who know the Arabic language to go over some of the points. And every single one of them made the conclusion that it's impossible for anybody living even 100 years ago, much less 1,400 years ago, to describe everything inside of the womb of the mother from the time of the fertilization of the egg until it's born, especially in ways and details that even help people today to say, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Mudgha. I'm going to give you this word, mudgha. You say mudgha? Yeah, how many of you know what it means? 1? 2? Okay. Mudgha. The translation, usually they say a chewed lump. You know, like a wad of chewing gum, you know. And when you consider that it's describing that's one of the stages that a human being goes through in their development inside their mother, how would you know? How would anybody guess that? Of course, they know today. They can show you actual they call sonogram. They show you these pictures. You go, yeah, that's it right there. And so there's just so many things about this that just, you have to wonder. Even the hard-headedest person in the world would have to stop and think about it. Now, speaking of being hard-headed, let's talk about me. And my name is Yusuf. Oh, I already did that joke. Hold on. It's a good audience. I like to hear them laugh. Some years ago, by the way, I wasn't a Muslim, and I didn't really have a good impression of Muslims at all. In fact, my father came home one day and he said that we're going to be doing business with a man from Egypt. And I said, oh, okay, that's cool, you know, the pyramid, the Sphinx, Abu Ghul, you know, Nahar Nil, the Nile River. And I'm thinking, you know, this is going to be good stuff. I can imagine it on a business card or something, you know, import, export all the way from the land. He said, and he's a Muslim. And he said, what? A Muslim? Oh, come on, Dad. You know, these guys that are terrorists, hijackers, kidnappers, they don't believe in God. They worship a black box in the desert and they kiss the ground 5 times a day. My father's telling me, no, you know, this is a real nice man. He's very good, and I want you to meet him. I decided, okay, I'll do it, but I'll do it my way. He said, what's your way? I said, I'm going to come to him right after church. And I'll be wearing my big cross, and I'll have my Bible under my arm and my hat. Jesus is Lord. Today is funny. But back then it wasn't funny at all because I was really worried, concerned of this meeting, this encounter. I'm going to meet a religious Muslim, you know. I can imagine you're kind of like a wired up guy with bombs hanging off him or something. And I'm expecting he's going to be wearing one of those long dresses and have a big beard with... We'll skip over that part. I'm thinking, you know, really, again, I could say now it seems funny, but back then it really was kind of scary. And I imagine this guy's going to have this big turban on his head, and he's going to have an eyebrow that goes from one side to the other. He's going to have a sword, you know. Actually, I had in my mind a picture of the Ayatollah Khomeini. And when my dad said, here he is, I went to my dad's place, you know, the store there, and he said, this is the man. I said, where? He said, here. Oh, this guy? This is him, yeah. Now, he didn't have on this long robe thing. He just had on normal clothes. And he wasn't wearing any kind of a turban. And in fact, he didn't even have any kind of beard. He was bald-headed. I'm like, that's a Muslim? It wasn't what I was expecting. So I said, okay, so I met him. Hello, how are you? I still have to remember my status here. You know, I'm representing Jesus here. So we're just still shaking hands and saying, you guys, you don't believe in God, do you? He said, of course we do. Yeah, but you don't believe like the God of Abraham, do you? Now, usually I just breeze through this part, but I'm going to tell you something. When I came to know him much later, I found out that he is one of the descendants from Fatima and Ali, which means this is called Ahlul Bayt, the people from the house. Of the house or descendancy from the family of Muhammad, peace be upon him. So do you realize the question that I just asked him? Do you understand what I was saying to him? When you know that your genealogy can be traced back to Muhammad or Ali in this case, but from them, they know exactly their genealogy back to Ishmael. And who is Ishmael? He's the son of Abraham. I'm asking him, do you believe the God of your own grandfather? Huh? But anyway, so he said, yeah. I said, do you believe in the God of Moses, the God of David, Suleiman, like this? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but you don't believe in Jesus. He said, yeah, sure. I said, you don't believe he's the Christ, do you? He said, yeah. I said, you do? But you don't believe in the miracle birth? Oh, yeah. But you don't believe he's the Word? I said, yeah. But you don't believe he's like coming back in the last day? Said, yeah, we do. We can't be a Muslim if we don't believe it. I'm thinking, this guy's going to be easy. I told my dad, yeah, let's do business with this guy, man. Take him around here in North Texas, drive around, go do stuff, and, you know, while we're going along, I can convert him. Might have said, no, just like leave him alone, you know, he has his religion, you have your religion, just take care of business. So I decided that I would take it easy with him. I wouldn't go too fast, but I'd get him over to Christianity for sure. So we started driving around North Texas, working together side by side. One of the things I found out was that the man was exceedingly honest. Now, of course, you know, business people in North Texas, any Texan is exceedingly honest, you know that. And one time we had a table set up, and it had products on there that are called dated products. Now, a dated product means it has an expiration date, and after that date, you can't sell it, especially when it comes to, you know, over-the-counter medicines and things like that, like even aspirins and stuff, but it has a date on it. And one of the things we used to do is buy up huge quantities of stuff like that on real good prices, put it on a table, and then move it out low price. Make a lot of money. So we had a table set up one day, and the lady's coming over there, and I'm watching him reach under the table and getting product out to give to this lady. And I asked him, what are you doing? He said, oh, she asked, for this, whatever it was, and cough syrup, whatever it was. So I'm giving her that. I said, that stuff's got a year date left on it. This stuff's only got a week left. Why aren't you pushing this? He said, in Islam, I can't do that. I said, what? He said, no, because he said, that'd be wrong. The product you have here isn't as good as the product underneath. I said, there's no difference. Come on, man, move it out. He said, no, I don't need to do this. I'll just leave. I said, okay, stay, but let me handle it when we get to something like this. Because how could you care so much about a sale of cough syrup or a bottle of aspirins that you'd worry about whether the date was 1 week from now or 2 months from now, especially when it's clear that you're getting rid of wholesale merchandise? He said, in Islam, this is very important, and you could get great reward with Allah for the way you do business, or you could be punished. Okay. I mean, in a way, it was a little bit embarrassing that somebody's telling me something like that, because it seemed like, in my mind, it seemed like what he said was true. But still, all right, let that go. Another thing that happened, well, we were working one day, just outside of Fort Worth. We had a big sale out there. Lady come up to him, while they were talking, she put her hands out, like, she wanted to shake hands. And he didn't shake hands with her. Later I'm telling him, hey man, why didn't you shake hands with the lady? She's kind of cute, And why didn't you shake hands with her? And he said, I can't do that. It's my religion, we don't shake hands with women like that. I said, what kind of deal is this? He said, it's out of respect because you don't have any business, like touching them. I said, well, out of respect, she put her arm out there and now she looks foolish. He said, well, that's, we try to tell them, this is for respect. We don't touch ladies, even touching their hand. I'm thinking, man, how are you going to go out to any of the, in North Texas, I don't know if you've got Texas or anything, but it's going to be tough for you when you're going boot scooting and you can't even touch the lady you're dancing with. And then he said, well, we don't dance. Next thing you'll tell me you don't even sit around listening to music. Oops. Anyhow, I was working on this idea. I'm going to convert him. And another friend of mine who was, he called himself a lay preacher. Some people call him a street missionary. And other people, well, he got a lot of things he was called. But he liked to take a big cross. He had a wooden cross, about 14 feet long. And he liked to take this big wooden cross and put it over his shoulder, and then he would go walking down the side of the freeway or a highway, and people would pull over and they'd look and say, what is this? What's this guy doing? He's got this big cross, and they would stop and ask him, who are you? What are you doing? What's this all about? And then that was his opportunity to give out his little mini Bibles and things like that. And I went to him and we were talking one time, and I was telling him about this Muslim from Egypt. He said, whatever you do, stay away from them. I said, no, the guy's, he's nice, he's cool. And we, no, you don't know. Stay away from them. Okay, sure. And whatever you do, don't read their book. I said, what book? A Koran. I said, okay. Now, I had heard something about the Quran, but I didn't have any clue really what it was about. So when it came time that the Muslim brought a Quran, and he set it down on the counter in our store, he said, I got this for you at the mosque. You were talking about, holy books and things. That thought you might like to see this.
Saya pikir mungkin
Looking at it, I'm going, okay, that must be that Koran thing, you know.
Pernahkah Anda melihat yang lama oleh
And it was, you've seen that big Yusuf Ali, the old one that was real heavy, you could hardly pick it up. That's laying there, you know, I'm going, oh, okay. He said, you can have it. I said, okay, that's okay, I'll get it later, you know. So after nobody was around there, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you know, he warned me, don't read it, but tell you what I'm going to do before I open it up. Oh God, save me from any evil while I look at this book. Open it up. It's blank. Turn another page. This is the end of the book. This is page 1215. What is that? The book's printed backwards. Look at this. There's page 1. What kind of people are these? I would think everybody here knows that Arabic and Hebrew both read from right to left, and they start their books from the other side. So when I got to that page, I said, well, let me, page 1, let me read what it says. It's only 7 verses. In the name of Almighty God, the most gracious, the most merciful. All right, I'll read some more in there. All the praise is only for Almighty God, the most gracious and most merciful, the only ruler or owner on the day of judgment. You do we worship, you do we turn to for help or guidance. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those that have your favor, but not the path of those that have your anger or who go astray. That's it. I said, boy, I like that. That makes sense. I'm just about to turn the page, I heard something come from my eyes. Wait, close that thing up, you know. My friend that had the cross had a heart attack, and he went to the hospital, Veterans Hospital. And when he did, I felt an obligation, you know, to go visit him. And like almost every day I was going there and sitting with him, talking with him. And one day I mentioned something about my friend, the Muslim. And he said, I told you, stay away from those guys. I told you, man, this is very dangerous. I said, he's really nice. I wish you'd meet him. No, I don't want to meet this guy. About that time, a wheelchair came rolling into the hospital room. And the occupant of the wheelchair seemed very despondent. And so I went to him, and I had my Bible. I always carry my Bible with me, you know. And I started witnessing to him. You know what witness is? Well, it's pretty much like the dawah, you know, you just give dawah, something like that. And I started reading to him from the book of Jonah. And this guy's like ignoring me and everything. And I'm telling him, you know, you look like you're really depressed. But, you know, imagine Jonah, he was in a whale. And how depressed that must be, you know. Your prison is consuming you. And finally, he said to me, you know, I have to apologize. I've been rude to you. And you're just trying to be a nice guy, kind of helping out with your preaching thing and all that. He said, and I want to confess something to you. I said, hold on. I'm not a Catholic priest. You don't do confession to me. He said, I know you're not, because I am. I said, what? He said, I am a Catholic priest. I said, you are? He said, yeah. I said, wow, look at this. My friend, who's the one with the big cross, is sharing a room with a Catholic priest. This is cool. Next day, I brought the Muslim with me, and I said, we're going to get him, you know, 3 against 1. It doesn't really matter. We're going to team up. And a weird thing happened when I got there. First of all, my friend, the one with the cross, totally rejected him. He didn't want him to shake his hand. And I wanted to tell him, you know, it's not a woman. You can shake his hand. But that was a different story. But anyhow, the other one, the Catholic priest, was very nice to him, and actually talking to him about some things. It seemed as though they both had some common knowledge about some things going on, which was surprising. When the Catholic priest was released from the Veterans Hospital, he still needed to do some convalescing, so he came out to our home and stayed with us there at our place out in the country. We had a big house. So, while we were taking him out there to the house, he told me, he said, I know something about Islam. I said, you do? The Catholic priest knows about Islam. He said, we have to study Islam in the priesthood. It's one of the religions we study. I said, it is? Whoa. I said, yeah. And he said, actually, there's a lot of similarities. In fact, in some places, you'd be surprised that Islam is having some things clarifying even some of the message from the Christianity. And I said, you're serious? He said, did you listen to this man talking? I said, well, not really. Whenever I talk to somebody, I listen to me, but not them. It's not a good habit, but this is what a lot of us do, Then, when we were sitting around the table one night, it came in my mind, this is a great opportunity. This is where I'm going to get this guy, you see. So, now my dad was ordained minister, and he has a library right near the dining table, and I could reach up there and pull down the Bible. My Bible was the Revised Standard Version. I bring it down, and I'm going to start preaching to him out of that. But my dad says, well, no. Then, my wife, she has hers, which is Jimmy Swaggart's Good News for Modern Man version. And we start going around about which one is the right one, because they don't say the same thing. In fact, some of the Revised Standard doesn't even have the same number of verses in it. There's parts of chapters that they claim that are not really in the older manuscripts. These were things added later, especially the one about the three in heaven all being one. That was added just about 600 years ago. So we get immediately, we're arguing over Bibles. Well, I look over at the Catholic priest and I say, well, what do you say? Because I figure, Catholic priests, they've been around a long time. What do they say? Which one is the right Bible? He said, well, our Bible is the Reims Douay Bible. He said, you guys have 66 books. We have 73 books. I'm like, what? And this is going nowhere, And I looked over at the Muslim and I said, well, how about your Quran thing? How many versions of that you got out there? He said, there aren't any versions. It's just one. It's in Arabic. I said, what? What about the one you brought me? He said, that's not Quran. That's a translation of the meaning only. But it could be anybody's interpretation. That's why you don't trust these translations. You go back, learn the Arabic, and you'll see what it says. Now, how many Muslims do we have here? Raise your hand if you're Muslim. Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, let's go the other way. Is anybody here that's not a Muslim? Oh, you like being surrounded by all these terrorists. I mean, Muslims. I don't know. That slipped. Boys don't even wear slips today. Oh, I think they do over here. I don't know. Anyway, I won't go into that one. So what happened over the Bible thing really set me off, and I said, okay, I got to take another approach here, because I've been with this guy like 3 months and I'm getting nowhere. It seems like he's not coming over to Christianity yet. Still a nice guy, still being really kind and all the rest of it, but we need to give him a little shock, So next time we're sitting around the table, we cleared off. I said, okay, let's take this approach. Let's talk about God. He said, okay. He said, can I ask a question from you? I said, sure, go ahead. He said, can you explain the Trinity? Sure, it's easy. I don't even need the Catholic priest for that. They're the ones who came up with the Trinity concept anyway. But I'm saying, no, I'm going to show them. I got it down. Said, God is one. He said, that's what we have too. He said, so one God, how do you come up with this Trinity? How do you explain Trinity? Trinity means what? Three, right? Tri, T-R-I, means Trinity, three. Said, yeah, it's very easy to explain. First of all, you know, like an apple. He said, you're comparing God to an apple? I said, no, but like an apple has the outside of it, which is the red part, and then the inside part, the white part, and then the inside of that you have the seeds. 3 things, 1 apple. He said, now how many seeds are in there? Do you count those? Yeah. Had to let that go. I didn't have an answer for that one. So the next day, right, it happened, I was with my friend who used to have the cross, who's now at home convalescing at his place. I'm telling him, listen, things aren't going well with this Muslim. He said, I told you to stay away from them. Told you to stay away. I said, no, just look. We had a little incident about the Bible, the number of books and things like that, but never mind that. We're talking about the Trinity. He said, just leave it. Stay away from these guys. You're going to get a devil on you. Listen, I'm not joking. He really said it. You're going to get a devil on you. And we'll have to pray the devil out of you. I said, look, here's what happened. I started to talk about the apple. He said, the apple? You don't talk about the apple. Tell him about the egg. The egg, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's good. Let me go back, you know. Go to him. Okay, you know the egg has a shell on the outside, the white on the inside, and then inside of that is the yellow. 3 things, 1 egg. He said, what if it's a double yolk? What if it's rotten? Oops. Now what do you say? Now, amid all of this discussion of Bibles and gods, the Catholic priest had decided to go to the place of worship of the Muslim. He said, can I go to your church, meaning the mosque? They went. And when he came back, we took the priest aside and we said, okay, like what are they doing there? Huh? Do they like sacrifice animals? Do they make bombs? What do they do? He said, no, actually, some men came and they lined up in a straight line and they stood there real quiet. It was totally silent. And then after a while, they kind of bowed down, and then after a while, they put their head down on the ground, and they did this a couple times, and then they sat there, and then they got up and left. He said, I found it to be the most beautiful, serene, peaceful, tranquil experience that you could imagine, just like being in a monastery for monks. It was really nice. He said, even, you know, they stand the same way, like that, talking about monks. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, there's a lot of things about Islam, you know, that you don't know. So we had a discussion between he and I. And I thought, you know, this does make a lot of sense. It really does. Of course, I'm not going to admit that, but it really does make a lot of sense. The discussions went on for a few more days, and then the Catholic priest went back to the mosque with him again. I think it was on a Monday. And they didn't come back till very late at night. And I was concerned about that. And when they did come back, they got out of the car in the dark, and I was looking out in the driveway trying to see. And I saw the Muslim get out, and he was coming up the house, and I looked, and there's somebody getting out on the other side. He's wearing one of those white robes, you know, and he's got a little pillbox hat on his head. And I'm going, Pete? His name was Father Peter Jacobs, but we're not Catholics, so I didn't call him Father. I said, Pete? Did you become a Muslim? He said, Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. There is none to worship except Allah, and Muhammad's his messenger. And I was shocked. Now, in those days, we used to have a TV show. And so I pulled out the camera and equipment and everything, and I set it up, and I was going to interview him on camera and ask him, you know, how could a Catholic priest become a Muslim? This is a weird story. I can do something with this, you know. I'm sure some channel would like to have this story. I got to get this, you know. And by the time I set it all up, he was sound asleep. And I was sitting there thinking, this is too much, you know. Now, my home, inside the home, was upstairs, so I go up to my wife and I'm telling her, listen, you know, what do you think about Pete? You know, he became a Muslim, a priest. Because actually at this stage, I'm thinking about Islam in a very positive way. A lot of the things that I learned, a lot of things that became clear, just seem like, hell, I'd like to at least discuss this. So let me see how I can open the door to the subject. I'm saying, hey, what do you think about a Catholic priest that comes to Islam? What do you say about that? And she looks at me and says, I want a divorce. Well, what? Well, we've been married some time, got children and everything, and I'm thinking, you know, what happened here? What went wrong? What's she talking about? She said, I want to get a divorce because a Muslim can't be married to a Christian. I said, did I say I want to be a Muslim? I did not say I want excuse me, look at the cap, look at the book, see the cross. No way I would ever be one of those Muslims. You do not have to worry about that. And besides, what he said was that a Muslim woman couldn't be married to a Christian man. That's what she said. She said, well, that's what I'm talking about. I want to be a Muslim. Okay. Did not see that coming. Okay. The good news is, I said, the good news is that I too wish to be a Muslim. Problem solved. She said, I don't believe you. I said, no. You know, I'm serious. I just didn't know how to tell you. She said, I don't believe you. You're a liar. I said, I'm not lying. I'm serious. I really want to be a Muslim. She said, no, you don't. I said, yes, I do. She said, you're lying. You're just saying that now. I said, no, I'm not. I really want to be a Muslim. I'm telling the truth. She said, you can't because you're a liar. I said, what do you mean? She said, you're either lying right now or 1 minute ago when you said you would never be a Muslim. Either way, you're a liar. Didn't see that one coming. It wasn't a good night for me, but she said, now get out. I was halfway down the stairs when I realized I'd just been kicked out of my own father's house. I woke up the Muslim. His name's Muhammad. He's from Egypt. And I told him, look, you know, you and me, we got to talk. I got a lot of things to discuss with you. So what's the matter? I said, oh, well, you know, see, here's what happened. I started telling him everything from way back, from my earliest experiences in Christianity when I was a little boy, about Bible, about some studies that I had done, on and on. And we walked and talked. Well, he did the walking, I did the talking, until time for Fajr. And I saw the first little light of day coming, and I said, I guess you need to go pray. So I'll just, wait for you to pray, and then we'll continue our conversation. And he told me right then, he said, this really isn't about you and me. And it's not about you and your wife. Nor is it about you and the priest or you and your father. This is about you and your God. So that's who you really need to be talking to. Well, this is not the kind of sales pitch I was anticipating coming from a Muslim. You're supposed to be like, come on, man, be a Muslim. You didn't do that. He said, it has to be your choice. You have to do that for yourself. You have to come to the realization of what you really want in life, what it's all about for you. Islam's not for everybody. Some people don't want that. Islam is responsibility, it's work. It's, there's a lot of things in it. You can't just walk in one day and walk out the next. It's not the way it works. So he went off to pray, and I thought, wow, it seemed real clear what he was saying. So I found a place out behind Ned's home out there in the country and put my head down on the ground, Because I like that. I like the way that looks. You know, it really looks humble. I mean, this is about the most humble a human being can be. Your head on the ground, I mean, even an ant can come up and kick you. There's nothing you can do about it. And in that position, I said, oh God, if you're there, guide me. The same words that I had seen in that book, guide us. And when I raised my head up, I realized exactly what he said is true. It's not about me and my relationship with everything else. It starts with me and my relationship with my God. And as I reflected on that, it became real crystal clear. There really isn't any option. If you really believe there's a God, then everything else is about your relationship with Him, and that's what the word Islam is describing. It describes your relationship with your God. Because Islam is not a noun. It's not named after a person, place, or thing. Islam is coming from the verb in Arabic, aslama. It's the only word never translated in the Quran. It stays Islam. Whenever you read any translation, that word stays there. Partially because the concept is not there in English, and it's also because the word doesn't exist in English. It takes 5 separate words simultaneously to bring the concept of this word to the English language. Surrender, submission, obedience, sincerity. And that proves right there that you can't force anybody into Islam, with or without a sword. You can't force anybody to be sincere. And finally, peace. To be in a state of peace, no matter what happens, you're at peace with your God. Whoa. And with that in mind, I realized that I really don't have any option. If I want to be serious about my relationship with God, I need to do it His way, not my way. And then I reflected on one of the prayers I'd always said since I was very little, every single day. It contained these words: God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That best describes the word Islam from the Bible. Doing God's will instead of what you want. Obeying His commandments instead of obeying your desires. Obeying the lusts that dwell within the human being, but giving over to the one Almighty God on His terms. So I went back into the house and I made a shower and I came down. I said, okay guys, I'm ready. I want to enter Islam. So there in front of this man from Egypt, an ex-priest who is now Muslim, I said these words: Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And with that statement entered into the fold of Islam, along with 1.5 billion other Muslims. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Following that, my wife came down. She had a scarf. She put a scarf on her head and she said, I'm ready to make my shahada. And she entered into Islam the same day. Not long after that, my father, after some deliberation, also chose Islam before he passed away. Alhamdulillah. My stepmother, just before she died, I happened to get a chance to visit with her. And I asked her, I said, I don't want to, she's in her mid-80s, so you don't really get rough with people like that. You're gentle, And I said, do you mind if I ask you, what do you think about God? And she said, after those years back, when I listened to you guys sit around the table talking, I came to the conclusion God cannot be three. Jesus is not a God or a son of a God. There's only one God. And Jesus is a messenger of God. And Muhammad is a messenger of God. I never knew it, but you don't know these things. Well, that was the last thing I ever heard her say. She passed away just a few months after that. I hope Allah accepts from my father and from her and from all of us, really, our sincerity. I mean, since that time, I've seen a number of preachers, even some priests, an archbishop from the Orthodox Church, and this past Hajj had the opportunity to meet with 14 former priests and bishops from the Orthodox Church from Africa. They had converted to Islam, and they were doing their Hajj, and they even had pictures with them, photographs of them wearing their outfits while they were still priests, and they brought it with them to show, because part of the thing that they came was to explain how they got to Islam. But the reality is still the same thing for each and every one of us. It doesn't matter how many other people go to Islam or leave Islam, for that matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is your relationship with Almighty Allah. That's what Islam is all about. And that's the story about priests and preachers in Islam. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, huwa alladhi ja'ala muslimin. Subhanakallah wa bihamdihi. Astaghfirullah.